Welcome back to another edition of Swamp Talk, the official Florida Everblades podcast. Will, great to be back.
Phenomenal to be back.
And also, great to be back off of... Thanks again. Great to be back.
I don't want to leave you hanging there for a while.
Yeah. Great to be back after arguably the best week of Everblades hockey we've seen this season. 3 straight wins over the Kings of the North, the Adirondack Thunder, Florida on a 3-game winning streak. And after they had a tough road trip the week before where they played well, but unfortunately couldn't come away with any wins on a 3-game swing through Jacksonville and Savannah, coming back home against a really tough opponent and beating them in all 3 games and in a good chunk of the play dominating them.
Yeah.
That felt awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. Probably one of the most forgettable weeks of play for the Everblades. You know, not a great stretch of games on the road. And then you've got the number 1 team in the North Division coming into Hertz Arena. Adirondack's a really good team. Up to that Wednesday game, they had been on a 17-game point streak. They hadn't lost in regulation since December, like December 29th, I believe it was. So you knew it was going to be a tough challenge. And, yeah, not only did you get 3 straight wins, but the first 2 games of that 3-game series were dominant efforts by the Blades.
Yeah, third one was a little bit more of a nail biter, but they got it done with the 3-1 win. But even in that one, they had 18 shots in the second period and 16 in the third as part of a 44-shot evening. Like, they were all over the Thunder. It was the Thunder's excellent goaltending keeping them in the game for the most part. And when Florida is able to force teams onto the back foot like that, that's great. So now you've done that against the Thunder, the Kings of the North, and it sort of served as a reminder for the rest of the league that, hey, the defending Cup champions, just because we're not in first place in the South Division right now, we're still very much a team you're going to have to factor in when you're planning on going for it. Just like, I mean, this is honestly the only example I can really think of right now. The now back-to-back Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. You all right there, bud?
I don't know. I like the Chiefs. I don't like the Chiefs. I'm a Patriots fan, but they're a good team.
We won't get into that right now. But anyways, there
are people in the office that are much more upset about it than I am. Trust me.
Yeah,
Pat Mahomes is probably. He's unbelievable.
Okay, this is a hockey podcast.
Hey, let's talk about football.
No, but Will.
How about the Syracuse Orange?
Off-season. Discipline. Off-season podcast. Okay.
We're going to have a small talk about March Madness?
In the meantime, the comparison that I'm trying to make is that this team's now won back-to-back Super Bowls, but the Chiefs entered the playoffs this year as the 3 seed. It was going to be the first time they were going to have to go on the road. You know, it was this is probably Buffalo's best time to beat them. Baltimore looks great. Maybe C.J. Stroud and Houston could get something done, and then the other teams. But no, it was just Kansas City showing that, yeah, we're still the champions. We're the defending group. And obviously a weekend weekend series against Adirondack in February is a lot different than the Super Bowl, in terms of the time of the year, right? The Everblades don't win the Kelly Cup just because they beat Adirondack.
True.
But it kind of just serves as a reminder for the people in this building and the people elsewhere around the ECHL that this team still very much is expected to be a factor come playoff time for another championship.
Yeah, you can never count them out, and you're absolutely right. I mean, I never even thought about that, but it is a really good comparison between the Everblades and the Chiefs. You know, definitely the team that everybody wants to beat. Definitely a team that is always a threat. But maybe during the regular season, there have been a couple flashes where maybe they don't look like their old selves or the team that we've seen in the past couple of seasons. But
the questions start to form: is it their time to fall? But then once the hockey gets more serious, once it's time for a big series against the leaders of the North Division, you step up in a big way.
Once you get down to crunch time, there's probably no football team that you want to see less than the Kansas City Chiefs, and there's no hockey team that you want to see less than the Florida Everblades.
Yeah, I mean, apart from the fact that everyone wants to be the team that takes them down finally.
No doubt.
But there's also that's a tough draw.
A little bit of a nail biter.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at that series against Adirondack again, it was also a bit of everything kind of coming together for Florida, the things that they've been preaching about this season. I mean, you could hear it in just the way that Coach Ralph talked about his group coming in at the start of the week when they were coming off the rough road trip and they just needed the win versus getting ready for the game Saturday night, and after it when they were looking to and then completed the sweep of that week series. Everything just feels good around the building right now, and it almost just feels like, for the first time for me in quite a while, it feels like the team is truly 100% back to the way they were last year.
Yeah, and there's definitely something to be said for that. I mean, attitude and just kind of, not to throw around kind of like not like a newfangled word, but the vibes are really good in the building.
Immaculate, even.
Some would say immaculate, but yeah, I mean the vibes are good. The guys are happy. They're smiling on the ice, and just when the players and the coaches are happy and relaxed, it just seems to kind of loosen everything up, and you play more comfortably. And when you can play more comfortably, you can play more fluid and dynamic and quick. And when you're nervous and you're locked up and you're tense, then you start to make some mistakes. But you play loose, you play fast, you play a very fluid style of hockey, and that's the style of hockey that gets results for Florida.
And I mean, you also saw it on the game on Wednesday. It wasn't perfect, but when you get that win finally after Florida had lost all 3 games on the road the past week, they're part of a 5-game winless skid.
Yeah.
When you get that first win, it lifts a weight off. And then it becomes, okay, how do you get the next one? How do you get the next one? But when you actually do get those next ones and you start to go on a little bit of a streak, particularly against a team that's really good, like Adirondack is. I mean, they're still have a double-digit lead atop the North Division standings. This is a very good squad that Florida took down in 3 straight games. It builds your confidence in a little bit of a different way than what we saw earlier back in January when Florida got a winning streak going against Savannah and Atlanta, who, while they're competitive teams, they're certainly not the same caliber of club as Adirondack.
Yeah, and it's nothing to, those teams are nothing to sneeze at, and those winning streaks should be treated just the same. But yeah, I mean, when you look at a team on paper who's as good and as dominant and as consistent as Adirondack, for them to travel up here, or I should say down here, there's no other team south of here, but when Adirondack has to travel down here to Southwest Florida as the number 1 team in the North Division, and they've had the success that they had this season, and then for Florida to do what it did, it does kind of wake you up and be like, oh, okay, like the games that we played and won against these teams in the South Division that might not be the same, they're good, but look at this. I mean, we're beating a for sure playoff team. I mean, there's
a Kelly Cup contender who is being coached by someone that, talking to people around the league, is very much in the running for the coach of the year.
Yeah.
They have a couple of guys who could potentially maybe be right now outside guys in the MVP race. Maybe some of their goaltenders could be, or particularly Jeremy Brodeur, could be in the running for the goaltender of the year, right?
Yeah.
So it's a team that's going to have a legitimate shot at the Kelly Cup, and it's a team that was looking to come into South Florida and make a bit of a statement, talking with some of their people that, hey, we are a legit contender, because there's no better way to show that than beating the defending champs, but they couldn't do that.
Yeah. And what Adirondack was trying to accomplish and show that they're a contender, Florida did do that by knocking them off and, reaffirming the fact that, hey, we're still here, we're still a contender.
Yeah, in Florida, they're not a team that really feels the need to make statements, but sometimes it feels good to send a bit of a reminder to the rest of the ECHL,
Yeah.
Get a little bit in their ears. Someone who has no problem, getting in the ears of his opponents and teammates alike in a far more positive way is Chris Ordoobadi, one of the best guys on the Blades to have a chat with when you're just sitting around at the rink waiting for practice to start, or guys are just heading off the ice. A guy with a ton of character, a ton of personality, and we're pleased to have him joining us on Swamp Talk after this.
Welcoming on to Swamp Talk, number 26, Chris Ordoobadi. Chris, appreciate you coming on.
So excited to be here, guys.
How you doing? How's the season going? Just how you been?
Season's been really good. I feel like this last week was really huge for us. 3 wins against a top team. I think we really kind of proved what we've been feeling all along, is that we're a real solid team and that we can beat anyone in this league, and felt like we made a statement. So things are going good.
Very nice. Yeah.
You've also had a pretty strong season in Florida. You came into the team, I think, 3 games into the year, claimed off waivers. What was that like for you so early in the year? You think you're getting set up with the Railers for the whole year, and then all of a sudden you're moving all the way down to Southwest Florida.
Yeah, obviously things didn't work out as I had envisioned, but getting a call from Brad Ralph and saying, hey, do you want to come down, was like best case scenario from that. Like playing against the Everblades all my career, it's always like this was always the team to beat. It was always like a nightmare having to come and play in Hertz and play against a really good team and, play against a super physical team just that plays the game the right way. It was like always like the toughest thing. So to have the opportunity to join the Blades was like a dream come true.
What's been the most shocking thing for you seeing the other side of it compared to when you were an opponent?
Yeah, it's just a really funny experience because every team that I've been on, it's like you had to get up for those games, because it's like you're playing the team that is probably going to win the championship. And when I was in Norfolk, it was like our GM was like, his mission was to beat the Blades. And like Ralph talks about that all the time. And it's like, hey, like we know that the other team is going to be up to play against us. And so we have to bring our best every single night. So that's the biggest thing for me is like, I kind of was able to see that, like, yeah, every team is bringing their best every night when they play us, but now it's like it's cool to be in that position where it's like you kind of feel like the top dog, and it's like, yeah, they're bringing their best, we're gonna bring ours.
Yeah, and you're part of the evil empire now.
Yeah, which I love. Yeah, I love being on this.
Because you first came on to the radar of Everblades fans on the other side with Orlando. You had a few good scraps with Kyle Neuber in this building.
Yeah.
Now on the other side of it, particularly dealing with him, where you two are kind of the Bash brothers on the back end, on the forward core. What's it like playing with him now as opposed to having to match up?
Oh, I tell you, it's way easier to be his line mate than it is to having to scrap him. So definitely, and it's fun, like to have the opportunity to play with Newbie, who's such a legend. He has so much experience. Like to be able to be buddies with him, be roommates on the road with him, to learn from him, and be out there on the ice with him. It's super fun and good experience, and it's really cool to see, like, when we play a team, like they're pretty different when you have both of us on the ice together doing our thing. Like they kind of teams seem to feel like a little bit less confident, a little bit less tough when we're both out there. So pretty cool experience for sure.
And you've got experience with a couple of teams that the Blades are seeing this season. You played for Orlando, and you spent the back half of all of last year with the Worcester Railers. So now Worcester's coming to Hertz Arena next week. Yeah, and now you got to show some of your former teammates the lay of the land now.
Yeah. The construction of their team is really different from ours, and how they want to play the game is very different from how we want to play. Not to get too much into the fine details, but they play a very try to play a very skilled game. They like to have their forwards really try to possess the puck through the middle of the ice, hold on to it. They're not a very physical team, not a very tough team. They don't really like to, chip and bang and stuff like that, which is kind of more of our style. So I think it's going to be a shock to their system to come and play against a tougher, more physical, more experienced team like ours, and I think we're going to have a lot of success against them.
And how do you think, kind of going from Worcester, where they're, like you said, they're playing like a very skill-based game, versus coming to Florida, where still definitely a lot of skill to be shown, sure, but definitely definitely a more physical style of game. Yeah. You kind of fit both those brands really well because you're a high skill, high physicality player. So how is it like, or what was it like changing from the Worcester style to the Florida style?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like I fit in better typically in the South. I feel like always the South is probably the best. I mean, the past 2 years have kind of proved that. But I think typically, like, just the way every game is a hard-fought battle down here, it's a lot more physical, it's a lot older. We tend to play a little bit more simply, and that kind of fits in with my style a little bit. We always play north, we get pucks in deep, we finish our checks, and we establish possession that way, and we win our battles into the front of the net. So I felt really comfortable right away when coming in here and kind of and making the adjustment. So, yeah.
It wasn't just a stylistic change, though, on the ice. Outside, the lifestyle living in Florida compared to Worcester, a little bit different, just a little bit. Yeah. But what's it been like here in Southwest Florida? Because, as we mentioned earlier, you lived in Orlando before, where you still get some of the benefits of the weather. They got, of course, all the theme parks and all that kind of fun stuff down here. But here, you're, 20 minutes from the beach. Yeah. Beautiful weather all year round, a quieter area. What's it been like here?
I mean, this is definitely kind of more my style. Like, it's not at all what I've been used to, but, like, just Southwest Florida is paradise. It's warm weather every day. We have the opportunity, like you said, on the off days to get down to the beach, you know, and just really enjoy the weather. And even in Orlando, it's funny, like it's not that much further north, but there is definitely a difference in the climate. The climate is definitely a bit better here.
Yeah, and you enjoy multiple things on those few days where maybe the weather isn't as nice. I know you're a big fan of F1, watching all the races. So talk about it. How did you get into F1 and loving that?
I've just always been into cars and into racing, and it's kind of like a passion that me and my dad share a little bit. So, you know, like I've always driven a manual transmission car. He taught me, you know, at an early age how to drive. I had a Mustang that I drove, like, so that I was always into that. And then, you know, always had a real passion for cars. And then over time, like, I started to gain an interest and a passion for the design of the cars and how they work, and learn about, you know, the engineering behind them. And Formula One is the only form of racing where, you know, well, there's actually a couple others, but like it's the major form of racing where each car is independently engineered. It's not like a stock chassis or stock powertrain. You know, each car is responsible for developing the car and are formulating their car around the rule set, which changes regularly. So then I got really into Formula One because I wanted to learn, well, why was during the Mercedes dominant? What made their car so good, you know, from a design standpoint? And then, you know, from now with the Red Bull, like, why is it that their car is the best? And I started to get really into it from that kind of side of things.
And you were saying this is kind of a big toss back, but goes into the design aspect of the Formula One car. When we asked the team, who would you want your celebrity dinner to be, you said famous Formula One car designer Adrian Newey. So is that kind of, have you like read his book? Have you done any of that work? And
yeah, so he has a book called How to Build a Car. Mm-hmm. That's pretty interesting. He's somebody that's from like a unique time in Formula One, because he was able to be a race engineer, you know, work on the aero design of a car, work with the suspension. So he was able to touch like many different elements of a car. So now a lot of it is, if you were to work for a Formula One team, you'd have a very specialized kind of like a niche thing that you might do. You might only be in aero, right? You might only be in the suspension design, and that might be what you do. But he was able to do all of these different things and have like a really like big experience. So it's like kind of a fascinating from that point of view. He's also had like a massive amount of success. Yeah. Like he's won everywhere. Like if he were a constructor, he would have more championships than anyone, which is pretty amazing. And then also he worked with like some of the best drivers of all time. So my favorite driver ever is Ayrton Senna. And like he you know, he worked with him. He worked with other amazing drivers, but just to ask him like, what was it like working with Senna and some of these guys would be amazing. So
yeah. And you just said you're starting to kind of look into the mechanical engineering, and is that something that you would want to pursue? Is kind of looking into getting into the sport of it?
Yeah. So like always, you know, like I'm a real competitor. You know, like I love winning. I think for as long as I'm alive, I want to be involved in a competition in some sort. Hockey was always it for me. Like I play hockey because I want to win. I don't play hockey because I like scoring goals or because I like whatever. Like I like winning. So like when I'm in hockey, like all I want to do is like, there's nothing I want more than to win the Kelly this year. And I think I'm always going to have that competitive edge. So yeah, I've been taking classes through like the PHPA partnership program. I've been taking some engineering classes. So I think like eventually, like after hockey, my dream would be to work for like a motorsports team and be able to try to win, except, you know, not through physical endeavor, but more maybe my brain could help a team win.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, maybe, I don't know, you can if you learn to drive a stick instead of a manual or instead of an automatic transmission like the two of us, you don't drive stick, right? Well, no. Yeah, maybe one day you could just let me behind the wheel, see what I can do, right?
Yeah. All we need is the Hertz parking lot and an afternoon, and you guys learn how to drive.
We got to get like we got to get like a Blades like team afternoon at like Sebring or something.
Yeah,
have like a track
that would
day.
be unbelievable.
That'd be
I would
sweet.
be all in on that.
Can anyone else on the team drive a stick, or is it just you?
Yeah, there's a couple guys, but I know Chowsy. He has a little Honda CRZ or CRZ as he calls it.
Is that how Canadians say Z?
Yep, that's how you say it.
I thought it was just. I thought that was just across the pond.
Nope, that's Canada.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
But so you, Chowsy, and is
I think that there's a couple other guys, but I'm not super sure.
You just know Chow has that car with.
I know he has that car that has it. Yeah.
very nice, very nice. And is that driving a manual versus an automatic? You know, what's the you're as a car guy.
Yeah.
What's kind of the appeal of that? You know, just kind of being more connected with it.
Yeah, just the engagement and the interaction with the machine and getting to feel like what it's doing, and then like you would never really do it on a city street or on a daily drive, but there's techniques, like if you're wanting to drive at pace, like to whether it's like a heel toe downshift or rev matching or these different things that I like trying to master, and I'm not any good at it, like compared to like I'm no Ayrton Senna, but like
Very few people are
learning like car control and like how to shift properly, and like some of these like performance driving techniques is something I enjoy like trying to learn about. Yeah,
very nice.
What would be, assuming you wouldn't just build your own, what would be the dream car then for you?
The dream car. I really like old school 911s, so like the air cooled 911s. There's a couple companies that restore them and kind of like hot rod them to a certain extent. So something like that. And then there's another company that makes like old school like Alpha Julias called Alphaholics, and they kind of the same idea. Like you do like restorations and modifications to the cars, so they're pretty old school in terms of like look and kind of like the mechanics of them, but like performance, like pretty performance oriented. Yeah, so I think that's kind of like those would be the dreams.
Yeah. What's the what is like the night like the what's the I'm not saying what's the fastest you've driven, because I don't want to get you in trouble, but what's the car that you've driven that's had the fastest capability?
I got a great gift from my girlfriend. She took me out to a raceway up in New Hampshire, and they were doing drives in a bunch of different cars, but the one I drove was a 911 GT3 RS.
Whoa.
So I was able to take that on track with an instructor, and I don't know what I got on the main straight. I wasn't looking down. I was like looking ahead, but like it felt pretty fast to me.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Were you at the NASCAR oval up there?
Yeah. So they I'm blanking on the name of the track. I think it might be just New Hampshire Motor Speedway, but they have.
I feel like that's what it is.
Yeah. They have like the big like oval with banking, but like most road cars, they don't do well on banking because basically the oil doesn't circulate well, so you damage the engine, because like if you're always on a ankle, like it's designed to be more or less flat so that oil drains and can circulate. But
right.
So we were on. They have like kind of like a road course that it uses part of that oval, and then it's like in the infield, it's like a more of a typical track like you might see a Formula One car go on.
Oh, okay.
So like a lot of NASCAR tracks have like on the infield like a little road course that like uses part of it, like the main straight typically, and then like before you get into the big banking turns, it'll like be an option to cut in, and then
yeah. And since you've been in Florida now, and you're this is kind of like a motorsport hotbed. You've got even with your time in Orlando, you got Daytona just up I-4. You've got St. Petersburg is usually the IndyCar opening race. You've got Sebring doing the endurance racing. Now you've got Miami with the Formula One race. So have you gotten out to any of these tracks to see a race?
Yeah. I haven't this year. We've been away during some of the times, and things are like just starting to start now. But like the 24 hours of Daytona, I was able to go to last year when I was in Orlando. So that was pretty cool. I didn't make it through all 24 hours of it, but like
that seems tough.
Yeah, but like I was there for like a good part of in the beginning. I went home, slept, and then like it worked out well where I could go and then watch the end of the race. This year we had games. It just happened like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
but I want to try to like figure out like I can't like the 500 is not an option. We're in SoCo, but I'm like trying to figure out like something like either Sebring or St. Petersburg or something, you know, to get down to. It would be sick.
Just you boys trip or what's it?
I don't know. Like I will try to get the boys. I don't know how many other boys are super into it, but like I don't know. Like if I was like, hey, let's go to the 500, like I think I could find some rally some troops for sure.
It's like I might not be into horse racing, but if you want to say I'll go to the Kentucky Derby,
100%. I think that could spark some interest.
Yeah. Hey,
think your girlfriend would go with you too?
Oh yeah. She puts up with me. She's a trooper. Like she watches she's unbelievable actually. She watches every single hockey game and she watches every single Formula One race, like qualifying and the race. Even if we're not together, like she'll be on Flow Hockey watching us play. She'll be like, you know, we'll be like watching Formula One, even if we're like have to be apart and like be texting me. So she's pretty cool. She's all in.
Well, because this is also when you say that, we should also note that your girlfriend she's not just in an apartment in a different city. She's a member of the U.S. military.
Yeah.
So it's a little different than just being a little further away. One of my first moments when I was like, oh, this guy is awesome, was when you set aside your military jersey for her because you knew that one would mean a lot to her. So talk a little bit about what it's like dating a woman in the military and just being a pro athlete at the same time as that.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely tough. Like, I wish she could be here, you know, with me. You know, and it's tough, like, definitely being apart sometimes, like, you know, but like she's the best of all time. Like she's like she's so tough and like strong and has such a big personality that like she's perfect for the military. You know, like she's a real leader. Like I think whatever she would do, she'd be a leader. And and you know, like all of the kind of character traits that I think would be like great for a partner, like she has them. So like, and she, you know, was drawn to the military and decided to go that route. So it's like I chose to be a hockey player, and you know that's not easy to be a hockey player. I've been in 4 or 5 different teams in this league in 4 years, and you know, so I'm in a different place every time. So it's like, you know, we all make those choices, and it's just about like how compatible you are with the person and how like, you know the character traits, and she's got all of them. So yeah. Makes it easy. Yeah.
What branch is she in? Where's she stationed right now?
Yeah, so she's with the Massachusetts Army National Guard, which generally is a non-active duty. Like most of the time, you're 1 weekend a month. She's active duty though, because she's a recruiter.
Oh, okay.
So so she's recruiting directly into like the Mass National Guard.
Oh,
which is like kind of cool. Like there's some different advantages of being with like the Mass Guard as opposed to the big army. Like with the states that are like well funded, like that is like they'll pay for your like, not to be a plug for for what she sells, but yeah, like they'll pay for your like your college and tuition and help you out. And there's a bunch of good schools in Mass, so it's something pretty cool. And she's in it for the right reasons. Like she just wants to help out people and give them a good opportunity, and it's pretty cool to see like the people that she helps out, like how they can change their lives through joining it. Something I didn't realize until I met her, and she really kind of like showed me. So it's pretty cool.
Well, I mean, you look like you would fit right into the National Guard. I mean,
the only thing I would have to change is that I'd have to shave, and she's not gonna let me shave. So.
She likes the beard?
Oh yeah. It might be a little long and not super well groomed currently, but like I think that she would not be happy if I was clean shaven. So yeah.
Hey. It's the well, if the Army comes knocking, you may not have a choice. But
the thing is, because we've discussed this, is once you get past basic training, you can have a mustache. So I think I would just become a mustache man.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, the mustache still looks quite good as well.
Yeah, she likes the mustache. My mom doesn't like the mustache, so that would be a point of contention. So I don't know.
You always got to juggle these things.
Yeah, it's important. Two important ladies have to please them both.
It's always tough.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, sorry, go Will.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say the kind of transitioning from your life here and kind of your life before your professional career, growing up and you're out in the Midwest, you're growing up there. It's obviously a hockey hotbed in Michigan, and kind of what was that like to develop your career from youth to college hockey to rising up the ranks and being here with the Everblades now?
Yeah, so actually I grew up and was born and raised in DC. My parents moved to Michigan later on after I had already kind of moved away. But yeah, DC was really experienced a lot of growth in the hockey world. Kind of while I was growing up. I think it had part to do with the Capitals not being a great team. They had a little pockets of it before my time, I guess in the early 90s where they had some good players. But then they kind of took a downturn and hockey wasn't very popular in the city. And then, and the team wasn't very good. And kind of the city as a whole, I feel didn't have quite the prosperity that it began to as I went on. So I think there was a combination of factors, kind of right when the Caps rebranded, and they went from the old school logo to having the new one where it says Caps, and the Rock the Red stuff, and getting OV and getting that really good team. That was kind of the perfect storm where hockey really exploded. So I think it's very different now than it was then, but growing up, we struggled to field competitive teams at the AAA level. So every year, I always wanted to play at the highest level, but I had it happen where I would try out for a team and they would say, well, this team's not going to be competitive enough, and they would get rid of it, or there's kind of two competing programs. One was the Little Caps and one was Team Maryland, and it was there basically wasn't a big enough pool of players to have both teams be competitive at my birth here. So it was pretty tough to navigate, I would say. And my parents not being from a hockey background at all, they were trying their best to be what is going on with this? And, I didn't know anything. So it was definitely a challenge. But I think now things have definitely gotten a lot better. And the hockey world in the DC area has definitely really solidified. But I ran into a couple really good coaches, like Craig Laughlin, who does the play-by-play for the color commentary for the Caps.
Oh yeah.
He had a summer training program that I took part in that I think was really big for me and allowed me to be around some other good players in the area. And then one of the coaches there was actually my high school hockey coach, Tony McCauley, who had actually played and coached a little bit in the ECHL. So I actually transferred schools and went to DeMatha Catholic in order to play for Tony, and that was a really good experience. I would spend a lot of time just in his office talking about hockey and talking about the next steps and whatever, and he was a really good mentor to me and kind of a really good coach, and but also kind of I think to a certain extent showed me hey, it's possible, and this is where to go. And now it's pretty cool. We're seeing more and more players from DC, on SoCo, it's Bryce Montgomery, who also went to my high school. He didn't graduate. He left early to go play in the OHL, played for the London Knights. But it's awesome to see there's other guys now, because growing up there wasn't a whole lot of other guys that really you could look to,
Yeah. And I've noticed in a couple of other teams, just the series we just played against Adirondack, they had a couple guys from Virginia on their team. So the whole region is kind of starting to get on the train.
The DC, Maryland, Virginia area now, it's hockey is way, way bigger. And as I said earlier, I think it has a lot to do with that period where the Caps just really started to take off, that kind of that raising tide kind of helped raised all ships,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'll get to your favorite part of the show, Will, the college hockey that you played. Because after your high school days, when you were talking about the next steps, the next step was first a year at Lawrence University out in Wisconsin, and then you made the transfer to go to Newman University instead in Division III hockey. Division III, it's not something maybe Will, because he's a bit of a college hockey nerd.
Hey.
He might know more about it, but a lot of people don't really know about what D3 hockey is like compared to D1 or even D2. So talk a little bit about what it was like and why you transferred in the first place.
Yeah, I guess to go back a little bit, even before that, I played my last year in the Northern Ontario Junior Hockey League, which is a pretty small junior hockey league up in Canada. And I was on one team. I got traded to another team. The team that I was on, I think in the history of junior A hockey in Canada, it had the worst record of all time. We were 0-51-1.
Oh my gosh.
And you're a guy who likes to win.
And I'm a guy that likes to win. So you could imagine I kicked kicked over some trash cans and had some choice words for the boys on some nights when I felt like our effort wasn't there. But the truth of it is like we just weren't a great team. So I was pretty proud to be able to move on and play after playing on a team with as poor of a record as we had. I didn't have a ton of options. So one that I had was Lawrence University, which is a pretty good school in Wisconsin, played in a pretty good division. So I thought it might be a good fit from there. But I didn't get along really well with the coach. And there was just some things about being there that just wasn't great for me. Like we had 6 a.m. practices, we had trimesters, like we were in school forever. And at that point, my only focus was just, I want to be a hockey player. I want to, I want to play after college. So I transferred to Newman University. Something school I'd been exposed to for a long time because I played for the Little Flyers before going to Canada. So I was like at this, and they share a rink. So I was at that Iceworks arena like all the time. I knew about the school. The school had a lot of success. They had won one year where they won the D3 championship. So I was kind of interested in it for those reasons and thought I might have a bigger opportunity to play. So I ended up transferring. Didn't quite go as planned. I was actually scratched every single game of my sophomore year, which is crazy.
Jeez.
But then that coach was eventually fired. And we had a new coach for my junior and senior year. He gave me more of an opportunity.
Who didn't scratch you in every game.
No. Yeah.
Thankfully.
Thankfully. And then after that, then I started to play a little bit more, get some opportunities. And then end of my senior year is when I was able to sign pro with Maine. So, definitely wasn't like a very easy path, but like I made it work.
Yeah. The rest is history, as they say.
Yeah, for sure.
And then finally, this Everblades team, as you talked about the last week, was probably the best that the group has looked all season. Going forward now, a big week, a big few months to get set up for what the team hopes is another deep playoff run. So when you look back at how the team played last week and you kind of prognosticate that into the potential that this group has, what can this group still do just to make sure they take those final steps to, as the group has said, they're not trying away from it, three-peat and get another Kelly Cup?
Yeah, 100%. Like we're all on board. That's what we want in this room is to win another championship. I don't think there's a single guy in there that wants anything other than that. And I think obviously Ralph, that's his mission, and I think we have really good buy-in from the guys. I think last week we really proved that we are a contending team and that we really have like the ability to beat anyone. So I think it's just building on the belief in the room. Like obviously compared to last year, there's new guys in. I'm part of that new group. So I think that we've had to learn what it takes to be a championship-winning team, and at times learn that the hard way. Learn that every team, as I said to start, is going to bring their best when we play us because of who we are, and we have to bring it every single night and have that work ethic and that energy that we're going to bring our best every night, and when we do, I think we prove that we can beat anyone. So it's just having that belief and just having that consistency. And if we can build on those two things, then I have no doubt that we can bring home another one. So,
all right. Looking ahead and looking forward to the three-peat. Love it. Chris, thanks so much for joining us.
Awesome. Thanks
appreciate
for
you
having
having
me
on the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
More Swamp Talk just after this.
That might have been one of my favorite episodes, Will.
Ordo.
Love Ordo. Love talking about all the things that he likes to do. Because I talked about it before we got into the interview. He is one of the best conversations that you can find on this team this year.
Yeah, I think you'd be hard pressed to find somebody better suited to it. I mean, he's played in Worcester, Massachusetts. He likes Formula One. I mean, I could talk to this guy forever.
Yeah, he's basically you.
He's pretty much me.
Except 6'4", 225
and a professional
pounds.
athlete.
A little bit, yeah. Just minor differences. Probably didn't even if we turned off the camera, you wouldn't even know the difference.
I would have to agree. I'd have to agree.
I'd have to posit, and I think you'll agree with me on this too, Will, is that this is arguably the biggest week of the Everblades season coming up. Orlando, Jacksonville, South Carolina twice. That's all three teams that are sort of around the Everblades in the standings that are, I would say, within reasonable distance of Florida in the standings. Greenville at the very top is a little bit too far ahead, and South Carolina, Savannah and Atlanta at the bottom are rather far back. But the game against Orlando, they're a team going into that one that is trailing the Everblades by just 1 point for the final playoff spot. Mm-hmm. Then you got South Carolina, who right now Florida sits 5 points back of, although there is a game tonight as we record this on Tuesday that South Carolina is playing in against Atlanta. That could change things at Jacksonville, a couple points ahead of the Stingrays in the standings in second place. But either way, this week can very easily for Florida completely shift the balance of power in the middle of the South Division standings.
No doubt. And I think when we talked about, the Blades just got to beat the teams in front of them, this is beating the teams in front of them, and this is where it really comes down to crunch time, even though right now Orlando is currently behind Florida in terms of the standings. Very important team to beat, but then you got Jacksonville, who's a team
they're only 1 point behind. It's
not by a lot.
Yeah, one game, and all of a sudden Orlando's back in front.
Exactly. So when you talk about, Orlando, you got to beat. Jacksonville has given you trouble all season. You definitely got to beat them at some point in the regular season. And then South Carolina, who's been a very tough opponent for Florida so far in this campaign. Again, they're right ahead of you. You got to take these points while you can. And, the series against Adirondack was a great win. It was It was a big points haul that they needed, but it wasn't doing damage to the South Division in the way that going on a 3-game win streak against any of these teams would have done. So now it's time to take the experience, take the momentum that you gained from the Thunder series and apply it to teams in the South Division.
Yeah, you start off with Orlando, who, as we mentioned, is the one team behind Florida in the standings right now. They have, for lack of a better term, cratered over the past 3.5 weeks.
They're having some trouble.
They've lost 12 of their last 14 games. They did get a win over the Worcester Railers on Monday that brought them back within one of the Blades. Florida has 2 games in hand on Orlando right now. So it's not nearly at all to the same level as the series against Savannah, the 5-game series where Florida was able to basically push them out of the playoff conversation entirely, winning 4 of those 5 games. But this game against Orlando, winning that one tomorrow on Margaritaville night, I should mention, Will.
5 o'clock somewhere.
5 o'clock somewhere. 7 o'clock, 7:30, puck drop.
It's true.
Very true. But as I was saying, winning that game and then having a strong week following that, you can put a little bit of distance in between yourself and Orlando so that maybe the next time you have a series against them early in March, you can sort of maybe not deliver the killing blow, but put them in a similar situation to the Ghost Pirates.
Yeah, really start to bury them. And if you do well against Orlando and you do what's kind of happened to Atlanta, they're in the bottom of the division, Savannah's in the bottom of the division, thanks in big part to the Everblades winning 4 of the 5 games against them earlier this year. If you can do the same with Orlando and you just kind of put them in the rearview mirror, now it becomes you're just kind of taking another team out of playoff contention. If you do that, the Everblades are really starting to really kind of lock themselves in and look pretty surely at a playoff position.
Yeah, for sure. And then it just makes everything easier. You're not focused on whether or not you're going to be playing in April. You're just wondering, are you starting at home or on the road? You can focus more on the teams above you in the standings, like the Jacksonville Icemen, who are up next after the Orlando game. On Wednesday, Florida starts off a tough set of 3 games in 3 days on the road, starting against the Jacksonville Icemen, who Florida only has 1 point against out of a possible 10 this season, has not beaten the Jacksonville Icemen, including 0-3-1 at the VyStar Veterans Memorial Arena up in Jacksonville, Florida. A brutal place to play, as right now Jacksonville, by over 500 fans, leads the league in average attendance.
Hostile environment.
Yeah, the most hostile environment, arguably, in the entire ECHL, never mind just the South Division.
Mm-hmm.
So the Everblades have got to be ready for a really tough game. That one is sort of going to be, for me, of course, there's plenty of hockey left to be played against Jacksonville and the rest of this season. Florida still with 20, as we're talking right now, 28 games left on the calendar. So
wow.
Still plenty of hockey left to go. But that one's going to provide a real litmus test of where Florida's going to be looking in the standings to finish up. Are they going to be looking towards getting home ice, getting that second seed, or is it mainly going to be a battle with South Carolina for third seed?
Yeah, and it's important to try to bump up your way up the seeding, but the focus for Florida right now, the same as it was last year, would be, hey, let's just beat the teams in front of us. Let's just make sure we're in the playoffs. And then let's worry about all that when it actually comes time to play in the playoffs, because we saw the Everblades win the Kelly Cup from a 4-seed position.
Yes, they most certainly did, including beating Jacksonville and South Carolina along the way. Jacksonville on Friday, and then 2 games against South Carolina, Saturday, Sunday. Technically, this is the second game that Florida has played in South Carolina this season, but the first one never actually finished. In fact, didn't even come close. 7 minutes into the first period, I should say. The game postponed due to unsafe ice conditions. This isn't the continuation of that game. These 2 games were originally on the schedule, as they are right now. First off, a 6 o'clock game on Saturday, then 3 o'clock on Sunday. So very quick turnaround. The guys have got to be well rested for that. Well, as rested as they can and ready to go for that one. That's going to be an interesting 2 games. We haven't really seen Florida, as mentioned, in South Carolina this year. The 3 games at Hertz Arena were all pretty competitive games, some tight, low-scoring matchups. South Carolina and Florida, both 2 very talented teams, both teams that it seemed like both of them took a little bit to find their stride and find their regular form. And 2 teams that, with all the talk about Jacksonville and Orlando, and you could throw Greenville into that mix, Florida's arch rival is still the Stingrays, still the team that they are tied with in the ECHL history for the most Kelly Cups all time, each with 3.
Yep.
Still teams that have faced each other 8 times in the playoffs in their history, with each team winning 4 of those series. I mean, obviously, Florida last year in the playoffs, ousting South Carolina in 6 games in the first round, getting revenge for when South Carolina upset Florida in the first round back in 2021.
Yep.
These 2 teams really don't like each other. Makes for fun, exciting hockey, and it wouldn't be a surprise if, after all said and done, all the talk about Greenville's great season and Jacksonville continuing their ascent into the upper echelon of the league, if in the South Division Finals this year, once again, it was a rematch between the Stingrays and the Everblades.
Yeah, I mean, these are the real blue bloods of the ECHL, so these games mean a lot. And yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. The one time, or the most recent time, where we saw Florida play in South Carolina, we barely got through, midway through the first period before it had to be.
Had plenty going on.
Ended.
It was 1-1 with a fight in there. So
I think Kyle Newberry is going to be in the penalty box to start that game.
Yeah, for the one when it resumes on March 16th.
Yeah.
For these ones, they'll be proper games.
Yep. Clean slate, new beginning. But yeah, I mean, these are the 2. When
hopefully
you think of
with a clean slate of ice too.
Yeah.
I don't. That's not wood, Will.
That's plaster. I don't.
Your chair, man. Your chair.
Oh, yeah, here we go.
Thank you.
There we go. All right.
Thank you.
Now we're good.
Now we're good to go.
Yeah. So hopefully with good ice and hopefully with some wins for Florida, because again, these are the teams you got to beat. These are. I mean, Greenville beat them. Savannah beat them. Atlanta beat them. Orlando, Jacksonville's South Carolina. These are must wins.
And we also talked about earlier in the Swamp Talk library the importance of stacking up as many points as possible before that brutal march of 16 games across 31 days.
Exactly.
This is the last time before that you're going to face South Division opponents. So this week is your last chance to directly boost yourself while taking points away from your opponent before we get into that real tough stretch for the Everblades.
Yeah, you've got another North Division opponent after this upcoming slate of games in Worcester. You've got them at home for 3 games, same setup as the Adirondack series. And then you're into March, and that's crunch time. That's the gauntlet, whatever you want to call it, the onslaught. That's all those games. It's a very dense stretch of hockey against teams that you're going to be seeing if you make it into the postseason, against teams that you're going to be expected to beat a bunch of times.
Teams you're going to be competing with for those postseason spots.
Exactly. So, I mean, March is going to be full throttle, no breaks, just pedal to the metal hockey the entire way through.
To be completely honest, this 4-game stretch, it's 4 games across 5 days. This is going to be a sort of showcase of what March will be like.
Yeah, and I think we can expect to see what the games in March are going to be looking like. It's going to be a little bit of a window into that March slate from what we see this upcoming week.
All right, well, that's another episode of Swamp Talk in the books. Will, thank you for joining me once again. And we're excited to see you again next week to continue the Everblades season on Swamp Talk.